So one of the questions that a lot of people have is what happens to the CPP credits that were earned while a couple were together and then they get divorced? And so quite often what happens is there could end up being a net loss of benefits for both of them. So let me explain this a little bit. So if you were married in a legal union in Canada, and during that time, so let's use, for example, a couple that have been married for 20 years. So the CPP credits that were earned during that 20 years of marriage technically is matrimonial property and should be split between both of them evenly. And when a couple goes through a divorce and they're trying to come up with some type of negotiations on who gets what, they miss this part here. And if you automatically just apply to have these credits split, then it could end up being to both of your detriments, let's say. So during that 20 years, if both couples, both members of both spouses earn exactly the same amount of money, then it wouldn't really matter. It would just work out evenly. Where it really matters is if one spouse earned less than the other spouse. That's where it really becomes important. And what could happen is after the calculation is done and you look at all of the CPP credits earned by each spouse, if one had zero for 20 years, well, obviously they're going to benefit more from being able to share the CPP credits from their spouse who was working the whole time. But then you have to consider the child rearing dropout provision that takes place. So who gets to use that child rearing dropout? So you have to be very careful, because if you analyze your situation and look at the math, you can let the numbers dictate what you should do rather than being vindictive. And if one spouse is going to see a dramatic drop in their CPP and the other spouse gets an increase in the CPP, but there are cases where the total, once you make that change, there could actually end up being a net loss for the couple, or there could be a gain for one and an increase for the other, a loss for one and an increase for the other, or a loss for both of them, or a little bit of an increase for one and a big loss for the other. So the best thing to do is actually take the time to use a service that Doug Ronchi offers at drpensions.ca. He charges, I think, a flat fee for this service, around $250. He'll analyze your statement of contributions, and then he'll also look at the child rearing dropout and come and let you know exactly what's going to happen once you go through this process. And then you can make a decision as to what would be the best for both of you, and maybe come up with a more equitable conclusion of how to split the CPP pension credits. So I hope that helps, and I'll put the link for Doug's website just below.